All right, buckle up because this deep dive is taking us straight to the heart of Old Montreal. Cobblestone streets, the aroma of those incredible bakeries. We're about to unearth the magic of this place with help from a seasoned traveler who knows how to uncover those hidden gems.
And you know how much we love those little detours, those off the beaten path discoveries?
Hmm.
This traveler really has a knack for it. Like they can just feel the pulse of a place, know exactly where to find its hidden treasures.
Absolutely. So, to kick things off, they suggest we start with an old Montreal icon, Notre Dame Basilica. And get this, they recommend a two-part approach. First, soak in that serene atmosphere in the morning.
Ah, smart move, starting the day with a little peace and tranquility.
Exactly. Then, they say, head back in the evening to catch the sunset casting its golden glow through those incredible stained glass windows. Apparently, it's pure magic.
I can only imagine. And speaking of those windows, they're not just beautiful to look at. They actually depict scenes from Montreal's religious history.
Yeah.
Little visual stories woven into the very fabric of the building.
I love that. Okay, now imagine stepping out of those grand basilica doors and right into the lively heart of Place Jacques Cartier. According to our traveler, this square is a chameleon tranquil in the morning, buzzing with energy in the evening. Prime people watching territory no matter when you go.
It's fascinating because Place Jacques Cartier wasn't always a bustling square. Back in the 1800s, it was actually the site of Montreal's first public market. Can you picture it? All those vendors, the shoppers, the sights and sounds of daily life.
It's like taking a step back in time.
Exactly. It's a tangible link to the city's roots. A reminder that beneath all the modern layers, the heart of Old Montreal still beats with the rhythms of its past.
Okay, from a bustling square to a place that just oozes history. Our next stop is Chateau Ramsay. Our traveler describes it as a portal to Montreal's early days.
Oh, and they're not exaggerating. This place has seen it all. Built in 1705 as the governor's residence, Chateau Ramezay has borne witness to centuries of Montreal's story.
Centuries, wow. Whenever I hear about places like that, I always wonder if those walls could talk, right?
Right. And here's a little tidbit to add to that. During the Revolutionary War, it actually served as the headquarters for the invading American forces. Talk about a story.
Whoa. Okay, after that deep dive into the past, I think we need a little retail therapy. Our traveler suggests a visit to Bon Secours Market. Apparently a treasure trove of handcrafted goodies from local artisans.
It's one of the best places to find truly unique souvenirs. And you know what else is interesting about Bon Secours Market? It's housed in one of the oldest buildings in Montreal, dating back to the early 1800s.
No way. What a cool juxtaposition. This historic building now home to all this vibrant contemporary craftsmanship.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the past and present are in conversation with each other.
I love that. Okay, I don't know about you, but all this exploring has me craving a waterfront view, maybe a little bite to eat. Good thing our traveler suggests we head to the old port.
Ah, the old port. It's a perfect example of urban revitalization done right. It used to be a bustling industrial harbor, but as shipping routes changed, it fell into disrepair.
I can picture it now, those old warehouses just sitting there empty.
Exactly. But instead of letting it fade away, they transformed it. Now, it's this vibrant mix of shops, restaurants, those charming cafes our traveler mentioned, all with those incredible views of the St. Lawrence River.
It reminds me a bit of what they did with the distillery district in Toronto. Took these abandoned industrial spaces and breathed new life into them.
Exactly. And speaking of breathing new life, our next stop takes us to the very spot where Montreal's story began. I'm talking about Pointe-à-Calière Museum, which just happens to be built on the exact site where Montreal was founded, all the way back in 1642.
Talk about a blast from the past. I can only imagine what it must feel like to stand on that very spot, knowing that you're walking in the footsteps of those early settlers. So, what can someone expect to find in this unique museum?
Well, let me tell you, Pointe-à-Calière is like a giant underground treasure chest, filled with artifacts unearthed during archaeological digs. You'll find remnants of the original fortifications, foundations of early buildings.
It's like stepping right into an Indiana Jones movie.
Right, and it's not just about the big, impressive stuff. They also have everyday objects, tools, pottery, even toys that give you a glimpse into the daily lives of those early Montrealers.
It's those little details that really bring history to life, don't they? It's one thing to read about the past, but to actually see and touch objects from that time period, it makes it so much more real, so much more human.
Absolutely. And speaking of taking a step back in time, our traveler suggests we head to Rue St. Paul next, which just happens to be the oldest street in all of Montreal.
Ooh, I'm picturing those narrow cobblestone streets, the scent of history hanging in the air.
You've got it. Walking down Rue St. Paul is like stepping into a time capsule. Today, it's home to charming boutiques and cafes, but you can still feel the echoes of its past.
I bet. Okay, for our next stop, we're going from the oldest street in Montreal to a stunning example of the city's more recent architectural achievements. It's time to talk about City Hall Hotel de Ville.
Ah, Hotel de Ville, a true architectural gem. This grand building, with its distinctive mansard roof and ornate details, is a prime example of Second Empire style, which was all the rage in the late 19th century.
You know, it's funny you should mention that. There's a theater in my hometown built in that same style. Always makes me feel like I should be arriving in a horse-drawn carriage.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how architecture has the power to transport us to different eras. Now, for those who want to dive even deeper into Montreal's history, our traveler suggests adding a couple more stops. First up, the Marguerite Bourgeois Museum and Notre-Dame de Bon Secours Chapel.
Marguerite Bourgeois. That name rings a bell, but I have to admit, I'm not too familiar with her story. Who was she, and why is this museum and the chapel worth a visit?
Well, Marguerite Bourgeois was an extraordinary woman who dedicated her life to education and social justice. Back in the 17th century, she founded the Congregation of Notre Dame of Montreal, established the city's first school, and played a pivotal role in shaping its social fabric.
Wow, she sounds like a true trailblazer.
She absolutely was. A museum tells her incredible story. And the chapel, well, let's just say the panoramic views of Old Montreal from up there are breathtaking. It's a testament to her enduring legacy.
I'm adding that to my list. Now, we have one last stop on our whirlwind tour, and it's a must for any history buff. The Sir Georges Etienne Cartier National Historic Site.
Ah, yes. So Georges Etienne Cartier. He was a key figure in Canadian Confederation, a pivotal moment that shaped Canada as we know it today. His former residence offers a fascinating glimpse into his life and times and what life was like in 19th century Montreal in general.
It's always so interesting to get a peek into the personal lives of these historical figures, right? See how they lived, what their homes were like. Speaking of which, did they discover anything interesting while they were restoring his home?
You know, I love those little details. Well, during the restoration, they actually found some of the original wallpaper hidden beneath layers of paint.
No way! That's incredible.
It's those kinds of discoveries that make history feel so tangible, so immediate, like we're just a heartbeat away from the past.
I get chills just thinking about it.
And that's what makes Old Montreal so captivating. It's not just about the landmarks. It's about the stories etched into the very fabric of this place.
It's about experiencing history with all your senses, right?
Exactly. And our traveler encourages everyone to do just that. Soak in the atmosphere. Experience the magic of Old Montreal during the day and under the glow of those old-fashioned street lamps at night.
They did mention those charming cafes. I can just picture myself now, tucked away at a sidewalk table with a cup of coffee, watching the world go by.
It's the perfect way to end a day of exploration. And speaking of exploration, our traveler has one last piece of advice. Don't be afraid to get a little lost in those winding cobblestone streets.
Now that's something I can definitely get behind. Some of my favorite travel memories have come from those moments where I've just wandered off the beaten path and let the city surprise me.
That's when the real magic happens.
It's like they say, right, not all who wander are lost. Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you just let go of the map and follow your curiosity.
Absolutely. And speaking of discoveries, I'm curious about those handcrafted treasures at Bon Secours Market. Did our traveler mention any specific artisans or crafts?
You know, now that you mention it, they did rave about this one leather worker who makes these gorgeous journals. Apparently, the smell of the leather alone is enough to transport you back in time.
Oh, I can only imagine.
They also mentioned finding some really cool jewelry, all made from recycled materials. Talk about sustainable style.
It's like taking a piece of the city's heart home with you. And you know, that's what I hope our listeners take away from this deep dive. More than just a list of landmarks, a sense of wonder, that thirst for exploration, that feeling of connection to a place and its stories.
Beautifully said. So, to our listeners out there, as you plan your own adventure through Old Montreal, remember, don't just see it, feel it. Those cobblestones beneath your feet, the echoes of history in those old buildings.
Let yourself get a little lost. Discover your own hidden gems.
And who knows, maybe you'll even bring home a few stories of your own. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Old Montreal. Until next time, happy travels, everyone.